Today on the Big 3 in 30, Wemby and the Spurs beat the Pistons.
A classic all-out rock fight, if you will.
The Kings finally snapped their 16-game losing streak.
This is the longest losing streak in franchise history.
And the Rockets take care of the Jazz.
They just came out swinging. I mean, they were on fire.
This is the Big 3 in 30 NBA. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 NBA starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Spurs used 21 points and 6 blocks from Victor Wembanyama to pick up a win over the Pistons last night. After the standout showing, Casey Vieira and Devin Brown recap the matchup.
A big-time San Antonio Spurs victory this evening in Detroit against the league-leading Pistons. A 114-103 victory on national television in a classic all-out rock fight, if you will. The officials let them play, and as a result, it got fun. It got interesting. He, of course, is NBA champion Devin Brown. I'm Casey Vieira. Last time we were talking about a notable Spurs-Pistons game, my friend. You were involved. And it turned out pretty good. End of the night an NBA champion. They don't end the night's NBA champions tonight, but pretty good feeling nonetheless.
Yes, sir. We got a lot to talk about, Casey. Let's get into it. But I'll tell you what, Spurs grew up tonight.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Yeah, and as we know, an 8-game win streak coming into this thing, perfect on the rodeo road trip so far, 4-0. But Detroit, every accolade that you could possibly give them right now, deservedly so, 43-12. They were actually in the middle of a stretch right now where they have a homestand between the Spurs, Oklahoma City, and Cleveland, and then Cleveland and the Spurs on the road in less than a week. So there's some pivotal basketball, some show me something type basketball that was going on the Pistons side of things as well. And on the Detroit aspect of it, though, they didn't come out looking like they had they were ready to prove anything, because the Spurs opened the game on a 14-2 run, and things kind of level out because of all those things, the physicality, the muscle, and part of the reason, again, why they played as well as they had, as Detroit has. They go up 27-24 after the first quarter of play. The second quarter, and we'll dive into this back in a little bit more. Victor, awful shooting first half. De'Aaron Fox, awful shooting first half. Somewhere the Spurs had to generate some sort of offense in the second quarter, and they did. Devin Vassell, Julian Champagnie combined for 30 points. Collectively, the team as a whole, they go 11 of 23 from 3 in the first half and ultimately carry a 2-point lead into the halftime break, subsequently into the third quarter. And then we see San Antonio turn up the defense to 11 a little bit, because they hold Detroit to 7 of 22 in the third quarter of play to ultimately balloon that lead, crack double digits by the time it hits the fourth. Fourth quarter, Pistons, understandably so, they were going to make their runs, and they did. And they got within 9 a couple of times. But some big-time blocks for Victor Wembanyama. He had 3 in the fourth quarter, and some big-time buckets, just pure shot making. Devin Vassell again, Champagnie again, Keldon Johnson, 3 consecutive threes in the closing few minutes that essentially put the game away. Math reads to a successful night for the Spurs, 114-103. Wemby grinds his way to 21-17 and 6 blocks. Devin Vassell, the high man, he has 28, 7 of 11 from 3. De'Aaron Fox, 10 points, 7 boards, 7 assists, 4 of 17 shooting. The numbers on Cade Cunningham, this is the notable one. 16 points, 5 of 26 they hold him to from the field. Massive win collectively all the way around as they move to 41-16. A massive show me something, and we're running out of ways to, believe how the Spurs are not going to win big. Don't have something's going to hold them back, and this is just another one of those growing moments for the better again tonight.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying about the Spurs and finding a way to win and finding a way in tough environments, and this is probably the toughest. Number one in the East, Detroit is, and San Antonio went in there and got off to a great start. Devin Vassell hitting the first three of the game. And, when you talk about that second quarter and the things that Detroit tried to do, San Antonio just stayed with what it is that they were doing, stayed together, continued to move the basketball. And I think what opened it up in the third and fourth quarter was the fact that Vassell and Juju were hitting their outside shots. Wemby chipping in at times, Fox doing the same thing. But Casey, it was big because in that second half, now the Spurs were able to regroup, having a 2-point lead. And then I think they just decided that they knew that they needed to play their type of basketball, and Detroit had to chase them instead of it being the other way around. Hence, we saw them get a lead, and Detroit played catch up all night. They have a fantastic group, on that side, and we'll see them here, in the next month or so. But as for tonight, I think San Antonio answered the challenge of playing in a tough environment. And, during this 8-game streak, they've got criticized for the opponents they played. Well, tonight on national TV, they stepped up and got the job done.
Yeah, Pistons shoot 38% from the field, 7 of 36 from three. So mental math tells me that's less than 20% from three. They scored 21 points off 16 Piston turnovers. That was an aspect of it as well. So much to like about something like this. Because what has been the overwhelming fear for a lot of people when it comes to the playoffs and the games slow down and you face a physical team, it's Victor getting knocked down, Victor getting beat up, and all those things happened tonight. He got clobbered in that first half. These national TV games, every time they see a physical team and Victor on standby, they have the packages ready to go, right?
They're ready to go, Casey. Yes,
and they're ready to go. And against a team like a Detroit, it takes about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes in real time to put it all together. But you saw this a lot in the Houston game a couple weeks ago in Houston, the one that the Spurs won, was that they played physical in that same exact fashion that they did against Victor. And a lot of the times prior to that, it was Victor just kind of like, oh, dust myself off, keep going, just kind of go through the motions, not exactly look like winded or taken back, but not look like he took it personal, not necessarily get mad or fired up or something like that. That's kind of, I guess, the basic way of what I'm trying to get at. But like you saw in the Houston game where he went off in the fourth quarter on so many, where he outscored the Pistons or the Rockets in that game in that fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And then you saw it again tonight, but not on the offensive side, on the defensive side. Those three block shots, it felt like he had 6, but it felt like 16 the way he was doing things. You love that aspect of Victor being able to do that, because that is the type of thing we've been hearing, and some of it deserves skepticism along the way of whether or not that will hold them back in the playoffs. Victor's ability to adapt, Victor's ability to dust himself off in these type of situations, be aggressive, be physical back. You're not bigger and stronger than Jalen Duren, but you know what? Find another way to impact the game and get the better of him. Duren got some blows in on Victor tonight, literally and figuratively. Jalen Duren, he had 25 and 14. He's a big boy. We were talking, he reminds us of Kevin Willis back in the day, But point being, the overriding point that we're going at and that I loved was that this was a show me something game from Victor, and he showed up, not necessarily on the offensive front, not necessarily from the numbers front, but from a physicality, aura aspect of, if you will, establishing your presence. This was awesome stuff from Wemby tonight.
Well, yeah, because I love what you're talking about, and what it was is, Victor at key times of the game, Spurs being up 6, Spurs being up 8, being there as a presence, altering a shot, Detroit having to go with a higher floater or, not be able to get an offensive rebound. So, yeah, Victor didn't throw the 30 and whatever at you and things like that. But just his presence out there, the common effect that he had on his teammates was huge for the Spurs tonight. And I'll tell you what, I hadn't seen Detroit or Cade Cunningham play a whole lot of basketball, but he is a physical guard, and he picked up his second foul, giving Victor an elbow on the cut. So when you talk about the shots that Victor took tonight, for him to be able to bounce back, all right, and next play, what are we going to do, this and that, it was a different Victor tonight, and that's what you love to see, because, yes, I don't know if there's another basketball team as physical as the Detroit Pistons. They showed it tonight. but Victor and the Spurs were able to rally past that and get a huge win.
And I'm glad you brought up the Cade Cunningham foul, because the turning point tonight happened in the second quarter, ironically enough, off of a Cade Cunningham foul.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
More specifically, his third personal foul. And it comes of the offensive variety, because Stephon Castle up in his business. Cade, for a guy who is MVP pursuit candidacy, valid candidacy of a pursuit, in my opinion, and he'll be the first to tell you, you can't make plays what he made in this situation. Castle right in his business, shoves him right to the ground. Both teams get in the way. Keldon picks up a tech. Duren picks a double tech up, picks a tech up, the double tech's whatever, moving on. That's not necessarily the point I was getting at. The point that I was getting at was that it put him in foul trouble, because early in the third quarter, I should say, he picked up his fourth foul. Early in the fourth quarter, he picks up his fifth foul. Now, largely, he did a good job of staying on the floor, but between the efforts of Castle getting in the way, between the efforts of really collective, but it needs, if you're not going to slow down Cade Cunningham 9 times out of 10, you're not.
Right.
But you can be an irritant. You can create trouble. You can get him off of his game. 5 of 26, he was off of his game because he had to play different. Like you said, a very physical guard. And when you can't be physical, that's a big aspect that he doesn't have going for him. And by all those things collectively as a whole, the foul trouble taking him out of his game, it really exposed Detroit tonight. And it really showed that if the Spurs are going to win big and maybe meet this team in the finals, who knows? Who knows? Never know. This is what they have to do, match that physicality, especially when it comes to, one of the best players in basketball, maybe even the MVP.
If there's anybody, that watches San Antonio, you learn tonight, and of course, a lot of us have already known how important Stephon Castle is to the San Antonio. Now, I know Victor gets a lot of the accolades, and they're well-deserved. Fox, same thing. But let me tell you something. The job that he did on Cade Cunningham in that first half, when someone open hands pushes you like that, you've gotten to them. All right. I've had one of the greats push me like that. That's when you know that you've got him. And I'll tell you what, Castle did a great job on him, and just put him on the list, because Castle does that pretty much in all of his matchups. So great job by him tonight. Just playing Spurs defense.
Mm-hmm. They did. And I think that's the only way to describe it. And we're just learning so much more and more about this team every day, and reasons to believe. I have been called a skeptic. I have been called the Debbie Downer of the two of us. I have been told that people want to tune in like, man, Case, you're a buzzkill. Let them live. I don't think I don't being negative. I think I'm being real, right? No perfect, no product is perfect. And we talk about the flaws because we have to. As someone who has been accused of such, and listen, I will acknowledge that has been the case. I'm running out of ways to be skeptical, man. I'm just in a year that, and I think this is what has me believing too, more so than any other year. It feels like 2026, the league is wide open. It is wide open. There is no powerhouse on every single side to get in the way. So you pair what the Spurs are doing right now and the fact that there's so much parity. Why is it, crazy to say that this team isn't the title favorite right now, or close to, deep in that conversation, as good as any, maybe not the favorite, but can't be considered as good as anybody else is what I'm kind of going for.
Well, what helps is the fact that they can shoot the three so well. It helps that you have Wemby, and it helps that you play lockdown defense and you can get to the rim. I mean, what else do you need to do in order to be successful with basketball? The Spurs have covered all that with their roster. It's just that they have to continue to build the trust, and we saw that tonight. They look good tonight, not just as the 5 that were on the floor. Anybody that stepped on the floor was huge. So when you continue to see that, and you continue to see them getting better as the year goes on, that's why you start talking about a deep playoff run. So I get you on that. And that's one thing that I love about our showcases. We're going to be honest both ways. Whether they win, they lose, or indifference. Even in wins, we point out the flaws. So don't feel too bad.
I didn't say I felt bad.
Oh, okay.
I didn't say I'm not admitting. I'm admitting that that's the way I am, but guilt. I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel bad about that.
Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on an NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. Not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 NBA. The Kings had lost 16 straight games before they finally picked up a win over the Grizzlies last night. James Ham goes over the first Sacramento win in more than a month on Locked On Kings.
The Sacramento Kings had lost 16 consecutive games. I've been through plenty of long losing streaks. I think one season there was 3 9-game losing streaks. I remember the first season I covered the Kings in 2010-11. They lost 7 games and then won 1 and then lost 8. So they lost 15 out of 16. But losing 16 consecutive games is one of the most brutal things I've ever seen and had to witness a franchise go through. The Kings have not been a great franchise for the last 41 years in Sacramento. They had that nice little 8-year run where they were great. They also had, a 1985-86 season where they made the playoffs, a 1995-96 season where they made the playoffs, and then, a couple of years ago where they made the playoffs and lost in 7 games to the Golden State Warriors. So this isn't one of those franchises that you are confused by the fact that they lost this many games in a row, because typically teams that are perennial lottery teams, they do lose lots of games, but to lose this many consecutive is just horrific for everyone involved. And so let's get into some of the things here. This is the longest losing streak in franchise history. Of course, the Kings were at one point the Rochester Royals, so this dates all the way back to like 1948. So that's a very, very long period of time to lose that, to never have a 16-game losing streak. With the win, they improved to 13-46 on the season. The Kings had not won a game since January 16th. And let's see, what is it? I don't even know. February 23rd, I believe that's a date. So we're talking a very, very long time, including, of course, All-Star break in there as well. But that's still a really long streak. This was also only their 4th win on the road this season, which is absolutely wild. We've talked about this in the past. The Kings hold the all-time record for consecutive losses on the road at 43. And I think it was the 89-90, 90-91 season where they had this streak. The 89-90 season, I believe, is the season that they went 1-40 on the road. So it has gotten worse before on the road for this team, but this was just their first road win since December 6th when they beat the Miami Heat 127-111. Now, if you can figure out how this team can beat the Miami Heat, who historically thumps them, especially with the South Beach flu and the Kings traveling all the way 3,000 miles across to the other coast, I don't know how that happens, but that was their last road win. And look, now the Kings are in game 2 of this current 5-game road trip. They lost the first game and they lost it badly. And they found a way to win this one. Final score 123-94. Look, the Grizzlies are a bad team. The Grizzlies are tanking as well. They're a team that not only traded Desmond Bane last year, to the Orlando Magic, but then traded Jaren Jackson Jr. during the trade deadline to the Utah Jazz. And of course, they've shut down John Morant. I don't even know when he's playing, when he's not. Again, Zach Edey's been out for them. They've got Brandon Clark has been out for them. It doesn't even look like the same team. And the fact that they were this close in a game speaks volumes about where the Kings are as well. But I want to point out that winning does matter. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are just looking at the lottery standings. And look, the Kings came into this game with the best lottery odds. They're 3 games behind every other team in the league with their 12 and 46 record coming in. So one win is not going to change the dynamic here. I'd also point out that, since I think it's 2019 when they redid the lottery system and made it so the bottom 3 teams all have the same odds of winning the lottery, none of the bottom, the worst team in the league has not won the lottery. So it does matter, because if you somehow lose out on all 4 spots, the top 4 spots in the lottery, as the worst team in the league, the worst you can get is 15th in the league. But I mean, it's 5th in the lottery. Sorry, 5th in the lottery. So that actually does matter, especially in a draft that's right now 5, 6, 7, 8 players. It's a very good draft. The top 3 is unbelievable. There's 2 kids that are climbing up into that conversation as well. That I think are going to be tremendous players as well. And we'll get into draft coverage here very soon. But winning does matter, and having a team that loses every single game, it just eats at the soul of a franchise. It eats at the soul of the coaching staff. It makes the locker room not nearly as good as it could be. It tears apart the culture of a team. And, we've talked to Scott Perry here over the last, couple of weeks. And he talked about institutionalizing losing and how the Kings are not going to do that. Doug Christie has carte blanche to go out and try to win as many games as possible. The fact is, he does not have a roster that can win games. So to beat a team tonight that, again, was sitting a ton of players, that has a bunch of players on the IR, that have traded a bunch of players, a win is a win, right? And we'll get to the dynamics of this victory and why it, some of the veteran play does matter. But I think some of the positives here is that you just give everyone in that room an opportunity to take a breath. And some of these young players, they've never lost this many games in their entire life. They haven't. You can go back and look, whether it's combined through high school and college, some of these players have never lost 46 games total in their life, let alone in one season. So it really does eat at the soul of a team. Even guys like Russell Westbrook and guys like DeMar DeRozan, they haven't been through this type of season before. And so whether it's veterans or it's young players, look, the psyche of a team matters, and losing every game, it does matter. And picking up a win here and there, it does matter. So I do understand the tanking implications. I do understand the lottery implications and where this puts the Kings. It puts them at 13 wins, 13 and 46. I mean, that is so incredibly bad. And the fact that they're 13 and 46 and they're still 2 games behind every other team in the league for the worst record in the NBA, every once in a while, you got to get a win.
Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on an NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. Not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 NBA. The Rockets expected to beat the Jazz last night and took care of business, cruising to an easy win after leading by more than 20 at halftime. Locked On Rockets host Jackson Gatlin recaps the victory.
125-105 final score. And outside of the first few minutes of this game, where the Rockets had 5 of their ridiculous 27 turnovers in the first 3 minutes, and they were kind of, it looked like they were going to be in a dogfight with the Jazz all night. Ime Udoka calls a timeout. He's pissed. It happened. I think he called the timeout right after one of Tari's early turnovers. And Rockets come back out of that timeout and they just came out swinging. I mean, they were on fire from after that timeout. Shots started falling. They were executing, and they ripped off 38 points in that first quarter, went up 16 by the end of one, and just never really looked back after that. Like at that point, it was just all Rockets the rest of the way. They led by as many as 33 at one point in this game. It was a total blowout in every sense of the word. Utah legitimately had zero chance at any point in this game. Although there was a brief moment in the fourth quarter where I think they cut into the lead a little bit. Like it got it into like the high teens, like, I don't know, like 18, 19, 20, something in that range. And I had a small moment where I was like, oh no, here it comes again. Thankfully, no fourth quarter collapse. We will talk about the turnovers, though, and how concerning some of those are, but we'll also get into the positives and stuff from this game. And there is no bigger positive, though. It's kind of, I was bummed that the Rockets collapsed the way they did against the Knicks, because Jabari Smith Jr., I should have been able to give him his flowers for that game against New York, because he played a fantastic game against the Knicks as well. But he has been stringing together, even pre-All-Star break, a really fantastic stretch of basketball. He went through a really, really awful 8-game stretch, right, where he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. It was awful. But his body of work outside of that 8-game stretch has been rather impressive. Now, hopefully he doesn't hit another pocket like that. Hopefully he finishes off the year strong. And if he finishes off the rest of the season strong, and you look at his entire body of work across an entire 82-game season, and it's just that one little 8-game blip where he was in a shooting rut, and then the rest of the season he's balling out the way his numbers have reflected, that's a really encouraging sign for Jabari Smith Jr. But in this one in particular, 31 points, 12 of 17 shooting, 6 of 11 from downtown, 1 of 2 at the charity stripe, 9 rebounds, 3 steals, 3 blocks. 4 turnovers, but everybody was turning the ball over. So I'm not going to harp on that for Jabari. I'll harp on it from a team context later. But Jabari is doing exactly the stuff you want him to do in his role. In fact, kind of exceeding what you want out of him in his role. At one point in this game, he hit a right to left, like crossover in transition, and then finished at the hoop. Like his activity level, his energy, his, off-ball movement at times, his ability to find those open shooting pockets out on the perimeter and kind of being in the right spots, filling the right spots on the perimeter to be the recipient of many kick-out passes in this game. This is the exact version of Jabari Smith Jr. that the Rockets need on a night-to-night basis. This is the version of Jabari that is going to win the Rockets a lot of games. And for Jabari to have this kind of response after the burner allegation scandal and being far and away the guy who kind of received the worst of all that kind of internal drama for the Rockets, this speaks volumes about Jabari's mental fortitude and his ability to just lock in and persevere. And I mean, if this is one of those key, we talked about it when it happened, right? That the burner thing could be kind of one of those key inflection points of the season where either the team is going to galvanize and come together, or the locker room is just going to completely fall apart and everybody's going to hate each other, right? And at least as far as Jabari is concerned, the guy who got the worst of it, in my opinion, he has been nothing but an absolute professional, and he has been balling out since it happened. So really impressed with Jabari, really loving what we're seeing out of him. And as long as he stays kind of within his lane, the problem with Jabari is occasionally when he starts to get rolling, he starts doing a little bit too much, starts putting the ball on the floor too much, tries to get to his KD light ISO bag, whatever, all that kind of stuff. He doesn't need to do all that. He can, and there are times when it's beneficial. But in this game in particular, he just filled his role, man. He was the recipient of a lot of really great passes from guys like KD, Şengün, Amen, Reed. And he just was the perfect release valve. And that's exactly what the Rockets need him to be. They don't need him to be anything more than that. And if he can just fulfill that role, it is going to lead to a lot of successful basketball for this Rockets team. So loved what we saw to Jabari. Hopefully he continues this trend. And if he's able to close out this season strong and we're able to reflect back on his 82-game campaign and just point out, okay, he had one little 8-game stretch where he was bad, but outside of that stretch, he was incredible. That is going to be, like, again, because sometimes you small sample size theater, you pick and choose certain parts of the season. Once we finish the year and we're able to really reflect on how Jabari did this season, I think that ultimately we're going to come away happier or more impressed than we will be frustrated or disappointed in his production, his role, his efficiency, all that good stuff. So fantastic stuff from Jabari Smith Jr. Hopefully he keeps it moving along.
That's all for today's Big 3 in 30 NBA. If you follow football or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NFL and on campus going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NFL or the Big 3 in 30 college wherever you're listening or watching right now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 in 30 NBA.